It's 3 a.m. in the dead of winter. Outside, the world is frozen and pitch black. But step inside a commercial egg barn and it's high noon. Rows of fluorescent lights blaze from the ceiling, and beneath them, thousands of hens are wide awake, eating, moving, laying. To their bodies, it isn't winter at all. It's spring. A perfect, permanent spring that never ends and never existed. That fake sun was built on purpose. And to understand why, you have to understand something strange. Not a single wild bird on Earth would lay an egg on a night like this. The hen only does it because thousands of years ago, humans reached into her ancestor's brain and quietly switched off the part that knows what season it is. And here's the part worth sitting with. The exact same switch is being flipped right now on you. Start with the wild bird, because to see what was done to the chicken, you first have to see the system that was taken apart. Go outside tomorrow and look for a nest, a sparrow, a robin, anything. In December, you'll find nothing. In autumn, nothing. Wild birds lay their eggs in spring, and only in spring. And that isn't a coincidence or a habit. It's a rule written into their biology. Every wild bird carries a clock it can't see, a clock that doesn't tick on time, but on light. As winter loosens its grip, the days stretch longer, and more sunlight lands on the bird each day. Its body counts those extra hours. Sensors pass the signal deep into the brain. The brain wakes a chain of hormones. Those hormones travel to the ovaries, and the ovaries switch on. The bird starts building eggs. Scientists have a name for this: photoperiodism, the ability of a living thing to measure the length of the day and let its body respond. It's one of the oldest survival tools on the planet, and the logic behind it is ruthless. Spring means warmth, food, and insects for the chicks. Lay too early, and your eggs freeze. Lay too late, and there's nothing to feed the young. So the bird's body waits, reads the light, and only commits when the odds of survival are highest. Millions of years of evolution compressed into a single sense. Knowing when, then humans arrived. The chicken you know began as a wild bird called the red junglefowl, a fast, sharp, aggressive forest creature from Southeast Asia. In the wild, it lays like any other bird, roughly 10 to 15 eggs a year in the breeding season when the light is right. And for a long time, the story went that people tamed it around 10,000 years ago. But newer research has torn that timeline down. The real trigger came far more recently, only around 3,500 years ago, and it wasn't a deliberate plan at all. When farmers began growing rice near the forests, the grain drew the junglefowl out of the trees and toward human settlements. Proximity became familiarity. Familiarity became control. And once humans had control, they began to choose. A hen that laid a little more got kept. A hen that laid a little less got replaced. A bird that dared to lay slightly out of season when it shouldn't have was exactly the bird whose chicks were spared. Generation after generation, humans quietly rewarded the one trait every wild bird is built to resist: laying when the light says no. This is artificial selection, evolution with a human hand on the dial. And the results were staggering, but here's what almost nobody realizes. Most of it happened shockingly fast. As recently as the year 1900, a selectively bred hen laid around 83 eggs a year. Today, a modern layer produces well over 300. In a single century, humans nearly quadrupled it, on top of thousands of years of groundwork. And they didn't do it by teaching the bird anything. They did it by breaking something. that ancient light-reading clock, the sense that tells a wild bird to stop when the season ends, was slowly bred down until it barely fired at all. The modern chicken isn't a bird that learned to lay more. It's a bird that lost the ability to stop. Sit with that. The wild bird lays in spring because its brain sees the light. The factory hen lays all year because her brain no longer listens to it. The accelerator is jammed to the floor, and the brakes have been all but ripped out. But not entirely. And this is where it gets unsettling. Because the brake still works, just faintly. Put a modern hen in real darkness for long enough, and her body remembers what it's supposed to do. Egg production slows. The ancient wiring stirs under 10,000 generations of tampering. That's the whole reason those barn lights exist. Farms run 14 to 16 hours of artificial daylight, not out of habit, but because the chicken's brain can still dimly sense the season. So they drown the signal in fake sunlight before it ever reaches her. They don't trust the real sun to keep her laying, so they built a counterfeit one that never sets. And there's a detail here that reframes everything. Because it turns out birds don't only read light with their eyes. Buried deep inside a bird's brain are light-sensitive cells. Photoreceptors sitting in the brain tissue itself. When light strikes the skull, some of it passes straight through the thin bone, and those hidden receptors detect it directly. This isn't a theory. Decades ago, researchers blinded birds completely, covered their eyes, and still, as long as light reached the head, the reproductive system fired up. In one experiment, simply injecting dark ink under a bird's scalp, blocking that light, was enough to shut the whole cycle down. The brain was watching the sky without a single working eye. So picture what the modern hen actually is. A body still fitted with light sensors that ache toward spring, trapped under a manufactured sky that tells her spring never ends. The sensors are still there, still watching, still waiting for a season that will never be allowed to come. Now follow that egg out of her body, because people imagine laying as effortless. Bird makes egg, done. It's anything but. Once the process begins, a single egg takes around 24 to 26 hours to complete. The yolk builds over days. Then it travels down, gets wrapped in layer after layer of white, sealed in membrane, and finally the shell forms, and the shell alone takes roughly 20 hours. That shell is almost pure calcium, and much of it is pulled straight from the hen's own skeleton. Every day, 300 days a year, she is quietly mining her own bones to build a shell around an egg nobody will ever hatch. The toll is exactly what you'd expect from a body running with no off switch. Somewhere between half and nearly all commercial hens suffer breaks in the keel bone, the ridge along the chest, described by welfare researchers as one of the most painful things these birds endure. A wild jungle fowl never faces this. Her body gets months of rest, months to rebuild calcium, to recover, to reset. The modern hen gets almost none. She wasn't designed for this life. She was redesigned for it, against every instinct her ancestors carried. But the chicken is only half the story, because the same species that rewired the bird was quietly rewiring itself. For nearly all of human history, food ran on seasons too. Spring came, birds laid, people ate eggs, winter came, the birds stopped, and people went without. Feasts and famines followed the turning of the year, and the human body learned to move with it. Metabolism shifted between summer and winter. Hormones rose and fell. sleep stretched and contracted. Even today, in communities still living close to the land, researchers can measure these seasonal swings in the human body. We were, like the wild bird, built to read the year. Then two things erased the seasons. First, the chicken stopped being seasonal, and eggs became a food you could eat in any month. Then electric light arrived, and the difference between summer and winter, between noon and midnight, simply dissolved. Think about last night. What time did you finally close your eyes? Was the room dark, or were you lit by a glowing screen? Deep in your brain sits the pineal gland, and its job is to release melatonin, your body's signal for darkness. When night falls, melatonin rises and tells every system that the day is over. It cools your body, shifts your hormones, and eases you toward deep, repairing sleep. But artificial light shuts that signal down, and even the pale blue glow of a phone is enough to do it. At 11 at night, your pineal gland sees that light and concludes the sun is still up. The darkness signal never comes. Your seasons blur into one long, flat, endless day. And this is where the bird and the human finally become the same story. The chicken is flooded with light, so it never feels winter, never feels the long dark that would tell it to rest, so it lays and lays and lays, because the lights insist it must. You are flooded with light, so you never feel true night, never feel the deep dark that would tell your body to slow down. So you stay awake and awake and awake because the screens insist you can. The hen's brain is straining toward a sky it can't reach. Yours is staring at a ceiling. Neither of you is allowed to follow the rhythm you were built for. There's even a name for what happens when a human loses the seasons. Seasonal affective disorder, a measurable collapse in mood, energy, and sleep as the darker months arrive, affecting enormous numbers of people every year. Many researchers see it as the body trying to do exactly what it's supposed to, trying to slow, to conserve, to rest, only to have the signal overruled by an artificial world that refuses to let winter happen. So step back and look at the shape of it. A wild bird was taken, and over generations its breaks were bred out, its light sense dulled, its body pushed to produce far past what nature intended, and then surrounded by fake daylight so it would never stop. The payoff was extraordinary output. The cost was a creature living in permanent metabolic overdrive, mining its own bones, wearing out. Now ask yourself the uncomfortable question. When did you last truly rest? Not sleep, rest. When did you last feel a season change and let yourself slow with it? When were your evenings actually dark? When did your body, and not a schedule or a screen, decide the pace? The chicken can't answer that. Its ability to choose was bred out of it long ago. But you still have yours, for now. The wild bird stops when the light tells it to. It rests, it recovers, it waits. And when spring finally comes, it gives everything at once. You are built on that same blueprint, the same hidden light sensors, the same seasonal wiring, the same deep need for the dark. The chicken forgot how to stop because we took the choice away from it. You're forgetting because you never noticed the choice was yours to keep. That egg in the pan tomorrow morning didn't come for free. It came at the price of an animal that lost its seasons entirely. The only question left is whether you're quietly paying the same price yourself without anyone ever asking your permission.